speed helps in everything. Speed helps you recruit people faster. Speed helps you raise money faster. Speed helps you get better press. And speed is something anyone can do. You don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have a lot of connections. But if you can move fast, sometimes I joke, it's like playing chess. If you can move twice for every time your opponent moves, you can beat a grandmaster in chess.
Welcome to 30 Years in 30 Minutes, the podcast that distills decades of wisdom and success into bite-sized, inspiring conversations. My name is Michael Oved, the host of the podcast. Along with Terrence Gable, I sit down with the world's most accomplished individuals and hear their stories of grit and determination. How did they rise to the top? What is the key to their success? How did they overcome the obstacles that they faced along the way? You will learn all that and more on 30 Years in 30 Minutes.
Mike Cassidy is the co-founder and CEO of 5 startups which were all successfully acquired. Apollo Fusion designs and builds iron thrusters for satellites and was acquired by Astra for $145 million. Ruba helps travelers share their favorite places and was acquired by Google. Xfire helps gamers play online with their friends and was acquired by MTV for $110 million. DirectHit was a revolutionary search engine whose customers included MSN, Lycos, AOL, and more, and was acquired by IAC's Ask.com for $500 million. Stylus Innovation was acquired by Stylus for $13 million. Mike has a Bachelor's of Science and Master's in Science in Aerospace Engineering from MIT. He graduated from Harvard Business School and also studied jazz piano at Berklee College of Music. Mike, it's clear you've been through a lot of schooling. We were wondering, what are some of the most important lessons and skills you learned and developed while in school?
Well, certainly when I was at MIT, living in the fraternity there, I learned sort of a bolder approach to life. I was much more cautious kind of guy before I went to college. Just the things we did, like we'd have parties, and we would go crazy on decorating the parties. We had an undersea theme party, and we brought in 10 tons of sand into the vestibule for the party. Then we had to take out 10 tons of sand when the party was over. Or we went on this trip as freshmen up to New Hampshire and ended up having to hitchhike back. I'd never hitchhiked before. So yeah, it was definitely more bold lifestyle. Also more intensity in work. My first room I was in was 5 people in the room, in a single room. And we all actually had very good GPAs on the 5-point scale. Among the 5 of us, we had like a 4.5 GPA or something. Yeah, so I think that sort of intensity came from going to school.
And we know that you were very involved in jazz in school. I guess how, if at all, did that play a role in your entrepreneurial journey? And what lessons did you learn from that?
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of question. I think there's definitely been, I don't know, either it's correlations or belief that there is a connection between music and sort of math or stuff like that. There's also I think an idea around something about improvisation. Like when you're playing jazz and you're improvising, it's kind of cool because something's going very fast and you're kind of coming to think of the next note you're going to play very quickly. And if you're running a startup company, I think a lot of times you're kind of just thinking on the fly. Like any given day, there's like 10 little mini crises that happen. You have to kind of solve them. And you're in meetings, you got emails, you got people showing up. The company got a crisis with, so you kind of have to improvise solutions. I think there might be some connection there.
What do you think were the most important technical skills you developed in school that really took you in your career?
I mean, I think math and physics are great. I love math and physics. I mean, I loved it when I was, in junior high school and high school, and I loved it at MIT. I still did a modest amount of technical work at my startups. As a CEO, I spent more time often, fundraising and sort of managing the team and things like that, or selling the product. But certainly in the early phases of the company, I would like to get involved in the technical side. With the most recent company, Apollo Fusion was an aerospace company. I have my bachelor's and master's from MIT or aerospace engineering, so I had some technical use in the company. Certain design reviews I could poke on certain things, ask certain questions. So technical, I think this is the fundamentals, math and science. But, an even more important skill, I think, is, I don't know about more important, equally important skill is the skill of persuading people. I mean, or whatever you're going to call it, sales or something, charisma. You're doing that all the time. When you're getting people to join your company, you're basically trying to persuade them. When you're trying to raise money, you're trying to persuade people. When you're trying to sell your product, you're trying to persuade people to buy your product. When you sell your company, you're trying to persuade people. And, a lot of times you don't learn those skills, right? I mean, I don't remember any high school class on sales. And even when I was at Harvard Business School, I don't remember any class on, being a good salesperson. But I think that's a very, very important skill. So I think that's something, to learn. In the old days, they used to encourage, startup people to go sell used cars for 3 months, because it's a good skill. And then the very first startup I did, we were selling this software for $495 that was helping link telephones and computers together, and we managed to get some press about the product. So the phone would ring. This is the old days. The phone would ring. We talked to someone. We'd say, we're going to mail you a brochure. Call us back if you have any questions. We're getting a few hundred calls, but we decided, hey, this is kind of silly. Maybe we could actually ask for the deal when people call in. So, I practiced trying to get people to buy the product right then. I would say, look, you can pay with a credit card. With a credit card, you can always get your money back. It's going to be faster. If you get to buy the product, you can do the tutorial right out of the package. Instead of just asking a bunch of questions, going back and forth, sending the product, why don't you just buy it and do the tutorial? If you don't like it, just send us back. We're going to give you your money back. If we don't, you can just call the credit card company and get the money back. And that worked. We could close 1 out of every 3 people calling in. We could get them to buy.
So you spoke about the importance of developing the soft skills of persuasion, of improvisation. Given that most colleges don't really teach those soft skills, what do you think is the best way for people, both who are in college and people who are out of college, to develop those skills?
Well, in college, I think there's certainly many opportunities to join an organization where you can practice leadership skills. In my fraternity, I eventually became president of the fraternity, and wow, there are 40 pretty strong-willed guys. A lot of them are pretty big guys. Sometimes we're pretty drunk guys, and he somehow tried to, enforce the rules of the house. Before that, I was assistant house manager, which is a nasty job. You basically make people clean up the house. So I had stupid things, like if someone left their bowl of cereal in the living room, I would put their bowl on their pillow in their bed. It's like, okay, here's a little reminder, But I think there's ways. It doesn't have to be a fraternity. You could join, a sports team or, a photography club or something. But if you sort of look at a leadership role, then you end up working with people and, trying to persuade people to go in a certain direction. One of the definitions of entrepreneurship at, I don't know, it's MIT or Harvard Business School, is leveraging resources beyond the ones you directly control. And sort of motivating people is a great example of that, right? Certainly when you're an undergrad, nobody reports to you. If you're a product manager at Google, people don't report to you. But you try to persuade people to go direction X, Y, or Z. And the more people you can persuade, the more sort of resources and leverage you have. So I think that's a great skill to sort of practice.
And I guess going to the next part, if you're out of college and you kind of snoozed on those opportunities and snoozed on the opportunities that you had mentioned,
yeah,
how would you recommend developing those skills?
I guess I would say the same things. There's, there's organizations outside college or outside, college clubs that you can work with people. Like there's meetup organizations where you can create your own meetup and you create a topic that people want to come. And there's a couple around here where people do these meetups. And there's one guy I know, he does it every month as an aerospace topic, and he gets some of the top aerospace, CEOs or vice presidents to come and speak at his meetup, and he's managed to grow a big enough distribution list that, it's something you kind of want to do. If you're a CEO, you kind of want to go and present this thing. You'll get a little publicity. And he made it out of nothing. I mean, he doesn't pay in the CEOs, and he just has to kind of persuade them to come and talk at this thing. And he sort of built his distribution list by having good events where more and more people come. So now there's kind of like a waiting list to speak at his meetup, and he capped the attendance. He says, there's 50 people can come, and it sells out for a meetup. It sells out in one day. So I think there's opportunities for doing stuff like that. Lots of ways.
Mike, kind of transitioning a little here. What motivated you to become a founder, to be an entrepreneur?
I mean, I remember when I was in college, there was this other guy who had his own startup company, and I loved it. I was a total fanboy. One night, I don't know what happened. A bunch of 20 people got to go over to his startup, and we're touring around. It was probably only a 30-person startup, but we sort of walked around the building and see, conference rooms and the rows of computers where the engineers sat and CEO's office. And yeah, I was like, I want to do this. I want to have my own company. Also, it's a chance to really reap the rewards if you do well, but sort of pay the penalty if you don't. Obviously entrepreneurship has been very good from a financial standpoint for me. But I mean, I was willing in the very beginning, okay, if this first startup doesn't work out, I can go live in my grandmother's house. And I was fine with that. And, you contrast that, I think, sometimes with you work at a big company. Experience I worked for a few years at a big aerospace company, and we did this amazing thing. We built this solar-powered race car that ended up racing across Australia, 2,000-mile race. We won the race by a day and a half. We beat everyone else by a day and a half. And, my boss said, congratulations, good job. The average raise here is, 5%, but you're going to get a 6% raise. And I was kind of like, if you do your own startup, you get sort of a much bigger reward, but you pay the penalty if you don't. Yeah.
So a lot of people go into entrepreneurship. They start companies to make money. They start companies because they assume that that's a profitable endeavor, and they look to people, successful entrepreneurs like yourself, as inspiration. What would you tell people who do that, who go into entrepreneurship for the profit?
Well, on the one hand, I mean, I'm a big fan of capitalism. I think capitalism is good. I think capitalism brings a lot of great things. I mean, a lot of the inventions and technologies and cool things we have make our life great, or somebody want to make a lot of money, and that's great. Adam Smith's invisible hand thing or whatever.
It's refreshing to hear you say that.
Capitalism is good. I mean, you just go around a lot of places in the world, there's no capitalism, and it's not so good. So capitalism is good. At the same time, I don't think money is sort of I don't think it's gonna take you where you need to go. The motivation for money. I mean, if nothing else, I think the sort of the really intense emotional roller coaster, being a startup is going to be very tough times, very, very, very tough times. I don't know. In some ways, money is not enough, I don't think, to get you through those tough times. The other thing is there is no guarantee, right? There's no guarantee with a startup you're gonna make money. And so, I don't know. In some ways, I think if you're focused on that money, you might just be, when things are tough, you might be like, oh, I just go work, whatever, go be a management consultant or a investment bank or whatever. I can go make money that way. So no, I'm not convinced that sort of the money motivation is really, it's gonna make you successful. I've also noticed, a lot of times people ask me, they ask me, should I be an entrepreneur? Should I start a company? And one thing I do is ask them, okay, are you prepared to go 6 months without a salary? And some people are like, yeah, I saved up enough money. I could go live in my grandmother's house. I can be frugal. And yeah, if it takes 6 months, yeah, I'm prepared to do that. And other people are like, oh no, I couldn't do that. I want to line things up so I'll raise money on a Friday, and then when the money's there on Monday, I can stop my job, and then I often tell the second group of people, I'm not sure, entrepreneurship is something you should really go after because, yeah, it's not, if you're counting on a sustained income the same as you're making before. And a lot of times by companies, everyone who's joined my company in general has taken a slight pay cut to join. Now, we've made 28 multimillionaires or something, but they've taken a slight paycheck to join because I do not want someone coming to the company, working there for a year or two, and they end at company sales, and they're kind of like, yeah, I made the same as I'm going to make at the other company I was at, and so whatever. No, I don't want that. I want everyone to be like, yeah, I hope this works. I hope it works.
Mike, you touched a little earlier on failure and, kind of how that's just part of the name of the game when you're a startup founder. What were some of the biggest failures or struggles you had in your own career?
Well, first of all, 4 out of 5 of my companies, the first idea we had failed. We had to totally change the whole product, the whole direction of the company. And that's tough, right? First of all, you raised a bunch of money. And you told the investors, this is going to be great. And then 9 months later, you kind of go back to the investors. Yeah, that first thing I thought was going to be great. That didn't work. Now we're going to do this other thing. And that's hard. And also, you got people to quit their jobs to join because you convinced them we're going to do, the biggest online gaming thing or the biggest deliver groceries, to your home, or you're going to have the biggest nuclear fusion. You convince them on something, these people to quit their jobs, and then 9 months later, that didn't work. We got to change direction. So I've certainly had my share of failure. I've certainly been many times days away from bankruptcy, out of money. And that's tough too, because I've always been very open and honest with the team. And so I've had to come in and tell the team, sorry, folks, there's a 50% chance in the next month we're going to be out of money and bankrupt. But the good thing is when you're direct and open like that is, that same company I had to tell people stayed with it, and we actually did raise money. And then we a year later, the same company, were in another crisis, and people started getting nervous again. And I was able to go say, look, do not worry at all, because at the point we're in, I'm absolutely certain we're going to raise money. And I was like, look, I told you a year ago, there's a 50% chance we might be bankrupt, but I'm telling you right now, there's only a 2% chance we're going to be bankrupt. So don't worry. And people were like, okay. And they believed it, and which is great.
And how did you bounce back from that? Because a lot of people want to go into entrepreneurship, but they're hindered by the inevitable failure that will come. First question, I guess, is failure inevitable? And the second is, if it is, how can you bounce back? And how did you bounce back?
Well, I guess there's two sayings or whatever. One is the Mark. Well, they say it's Mark Twain. Maybe it's not Mark Twain or whatever it is, but it's Thomas Edison. It's probably not even Thomas Edison. It said the surest way to avoid failure is to always be willing to try just one more time. And there's a little subtlety to that, because it's kind of a tautology, right? Yeah, okay, as long as you're willing to try one more time, you haven't failed yet. But there's some truth to it, right? Its tenacity is really key to, I really believe that, really key to success. The second sort of point is, a lot of times facing the really bleak situation, I have to tell myself, I literally talk to myself. I close the door and I talk to myself and say, hey, you know what? You've been in a situation like this bad or worse, something like 17 times now or 23 times now. And so far, all 23 times you found a way out. I don't know the way out right now. In fact, it does not appear there's any way out now. But 23 times previously, you've faced a similar situation. And if you can get to that point, it's still scary, but it's a little bit of, this is really, I don't know how we're going to get out of this time. One of those crazy movies where they're like, now you think they're really in trouble and they find a way out or whatever. So that thing, I think it helps.
If you were talking to a high school student, someone in college, someone just out of college, and they're looking to kind of have the same level of achievements as you did, what advice would you give them?
Well, certainly all the companies, startups I did that were successful was really critical having an amazing team. There's no question about it. You look back and say, okay, well, wow, if we didn't have these 3 or 4 people, we never would have made it. So I think it's really important to, start building that network early on. Like, the smart person you remember from sophomore year, or, it doesn't even have to be from a class. I remember I hired this one guy for my second startup I'd never worked with him, but I played Ultimate Frisbee with him. And he's one of those guys who, like, when he would dive for the Frisbee, he'd just lay his body out flat, he'd land flat on the grass, skid for like 3 feet, but he'd catch that Frisbee. I'm like, I wonder what he's like in a startup. And I hired him, and sure enough, he was amazing in a startup. Definitely try to, if you really want to be an entrepreneur, I would just try to meet entrepreneurs and, I don't know, try to hang out with them a little bit. They're one of these sayings that you become, before people you hang out with most, you become like them or whatever. So it was certainly true in my fraternity. Man, if you look at, like, my roommate, one of those roommates from the very first semester I was there, this guy was 2 years older than me. Yeah, he sold his company for $100 million. He did a startup. He sold it for $100 million. And he's a smart guy. But, I'm smart too, right? So I was like, okay, if he can do this, then, then I can do this. And it's a little bit of friendly, like, wow, I got to beat him now. can I get a bigger company now, whatever. But he was on my board, and I have some of my fraternity brothers on my board. So yeah, I just think, try to meet people, especially people who are entrepreneurial, just hang out with them, just watch, just chat. It's a good way to learn.
How do you meet people? In college, it seems to be easy. You meet people, you're walking on the street, you say hi. The problem that a lot of people have is, great, I know this person. How can I make a relationship with them? That's the first question. The second question is, once you're out of college, it becomes a bit more difficult to meet people. You're working in a job, you're working really hard, couple days, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, long hours. How can you meet people then?
Yeah, a couple ideas. When I was young, out of college, but young, we formed this like little breakfast club with a couple people, and I didn't know all of them when we started. Like, I knew one, and he introduced me to another, and he introduced me to another. But this breakfast club, we had like one very, very junior, like a junior associate at a law firm. We had one very, very junior associate at a venture capital firm, etc. We had like people at the very beginning of their careers. And we had this breakfast club. We talk about entrepreneurship, and we talk about things. And, we'd meet like once a month or once every 2 months or something. But it was fun. And we talked about things. And sure enough, one of those guys that was a junior partner at VC became a partner at Greylock, which is one of the biggest VC firms around. And that junior lawyer became like the managing partner of Goodwin Proctor, one of the top law firms. Whatever, the cream rises to the top. So I would look for little groups like that. Second thing is, certainly in Silicon Valley, there's a big overlap between social and work. And when I first came out here, I got invited to a couple parties, networking parties, big parties or whatever. Like, there might be 100 people at a party, and so. I may seem confident in all this, but I was kind of shy, and, it was kind of, I was scared, and I was like, I don't want to go walk up to some people, but I forced myself to walk up and say, hey, my name's Mike Cassidy, and, this is what I'm working on. And after you've done it 10 times, you realize that they're going to say, oh, cool, tell me more about that or whatever. No one ever says, why are you talking to us? No one ever says that, right? So I think you got to tell yourself a little bit. You just walk up and shake hands. Hi, this is what I'm just. What do you do? And then for me, it was like a chain reaction. So I went to one party and I shook a lot of hands. I talked to a lot of people. It was a little tiring, but I met 25 people, and then within another week or two of those 25 people invited me to another social networking, whatever party. And I went to those two parties. And in the beginning, I forced myself. I was like a networking party animal. I probably went to 2 parties a week for a year. But man, my Rolodex was 8,000 people in my contacts database. So yeah, I think sometimes you gotta you might want to sit home and watch, Netflix or something, but you kind of got to say, okay, to build my network, I got to go out and I got to chat with people and follow up and, invite someone to lunch. And I remember that some person's interested in something. I saw an article about it. Just send them the article. Oh, I saw this article. I thought you might be interested. Probably nothing happens 90% of the time, but 1 out of 10 times, like, oh, thank you for that article. Thank you for remembering what I'm working on. By the way, it could lead to something else. So I think it takes energy to build that network, but those networks, when you build a team, it's going to make it much faster to get that team. And with all these networks, you can also ask when you're starting your company, you can ask everyone. You say, hey, I'm starting a company. Do you know a really good business development person? Do you know a really good backend engineer? Do you know a really good finance person? And your network will help you.
Mike, if you could boil your entire career down to one life lesson, one piece of advice, what would that be that you've learned along the way?
Well, I mean, I have this sort of saying. I'm not the only one who ever said this, but speed is the ultimate weapon, and I really believe that. There were many cases I've seen where we got a deal because we hustled and we pushed for the deal, and the customer kind of said, you guys won this deal because you pushed faster than anyone else. I'm like, great. And I've also seen cases where people hesitated, they wait, they were indecisive, and then something really bad happens. Like they were about to get a deal with this big company, and they waited 2 months, and the VP of whatever, engineering, who they were doing the deal with, moved to a different company or got fired or something. So speed helps in everything. Speed helps you recruit people faster. Speed helps you raise money faster. Speed helps you get better press. And speed is something anyone can do. You don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have a lot of connections, but if you can move fast, sometimes I joke, it's like playing chess. If you can move twice for every time your opponent moves, you can beat a grandmaster in chess. So yeah, I think speed is the ultimate weapon.
So I think for this next part, we'll move into the quick rapid fire questions. This is the last part. We'll start off by asking, what is the best morning routine that you do or that you wish you did that you think best sets you up for your day?
So I practice piano every morning before I go to work, and I like it. It's fun. It's the best time for me to do it, because if I try to do it in the evening or some of the time, sometimes I don't get to it. And then I bike to work. I've always biked to work basically, and I love it. It's kind of a built-in workout. Again, it's not like I didn't have time to work out. If I'm going to go to work and come home, I have time to work out because I bike there and bike home. So that's a good routine.
Mike, what would be 3 books you would recommend to any up-and-coming entrepreneur or someone who currently runs a company?
I just finished Elon Musk biography by Walter Isaacson.
I just read that as well.
Yeah. It's pretty intense.
Long book.
Yeah.
Great book.
Walter Isaacson's are usually long. I've read a lot of his. I like his books. But I think and obviously, I do not agree 100% with Elon's approach to things, but you gotta respect the accomplishments. And some of the things he does are, not very nice, but he gets things done. So I'm not saying do what's in that book, but I think you should read the book to see sort of what it's like. Another book is Founders at Work. It's a book. It's like interviews with 20 different founders. And it's really light reading. It's like 5 minutes on each company. I think it's really well done. There's another book. It's called 6 Days in June. It's about the 1967 Arab-Israeli War, and it kind of shows what approach Israel did in that war. It was a speed approach. They were outnumbered, but I think it's an interesting book.
That was a true miracle. Next question: What is a quote that you live by?
Well, I think I already gave the quote about surest way to avoid failing is to try just one more time. I think there's a lot of truth to that.
And so the last question, and I know you might have touched on it, but what is the best career move that you made? And what is the biggest mistake that you made?
The best career move I did was starting my first startup company. I mean, it was a crazy time to do it. The economy was collapsing, and I had bought a house just out of school, and it was going to be tough to afford the mortgage if I was going to do a startup company, but I did it. And that was a great move. It was tough, but it was great. And the worst, I think our 4th startup, we as part of our pivoting process, we worked on in the travel field. It's travel recommendations. Yeah, and then in our board member, Bill Gurley, great guy from Benchmark, said, "Oh, don't do travel." And he was right. Travel's tough. From a simplistic view, there's so much money in travel that there's a lot of advertising dollars spent. Like simplistically, on Google, if you're trying to win, if you're going to like try to advertise using Google AdWords or whatever, a lot of people are bidding on those words. So your cost per click is going to be really high anyway. And also from a search engine optimization perspective, you say, well, we'll just do SEO. Well, there's millions of people out there trying to optimize search engine optimization for travel. And so a lot of the keywords you're trying to win, they've already got like 10,000 links pointing to them. So I think the biggest mistake was focusing on a travel related company. That was not a good move.
Mike, thank you so much for your time. This has been great.
Sure. No, I mean, I'm definitely supportive. I'm a big fan of entrepreneurship. So anyone out there who's thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, it's going to be tough, but I wish you great luck and I highly recommend it. It's a great thing to do. All right. Thanks, guys. It was really nice.
Mike, it's been a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you again. Thank you for listening to 30 Years in 30 Minutes. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let us know in the comments if there's anyone else you want to hear from.